The wind screamed across the surface of Rick 7, carrying ice crystals sharp enough to cut through metal. Nari pressed herself against the tunnel wall, her crystalline exoskeleton clicking softly as she moved. The underground city hummed with activity around her. Thousands of her kind working in perfect efficiency. No wasted movement, no unnecessary sounds. That was the Vrixian way. She carried a ration pack in her lower arms, moving quickly through the maintenance tunnels. Her daughter Isel waited in their small chamber, and Nari felt something the others would call a weakness: worry, fear, love. These were dangerous feelings in a society that valued only usefulness and strength. Isol had been born different. Her wing membranes did not form correctly, leaving her unable to fly in the rare times when flight was needed. In any other family, the child would have been reported to the Hive Council. They would have terminated her without hesitation. Weak genes could not be allowed to spread. Resources could not be wasted on defective offspring, but Nari had hidden the defect. She kept Isol away from the mandatory scans, forged the medical reports, and taught her daughter to hide her malformed wings beneath specially modified coverings. Every day was a risk. Every interaction with other Vrixians could be the one that exposed their secret. Above ground, something new had arrived on their world. Humans. The word itself was strange in Nari's mind. She had seen them from a distance, these soft-bodied creatures in their clumsy protective suits. They had built an outpost near the southern thermal vents, claiming they wanted to study the planet's minerals. The Hive Council had permitted it, seeing potential value in trade, but most Vrixians viewed humans with contempt. These aliens were weak. They needed machines to survive the cold that Vrixians found comfortable. They spoke to each other constantly, wasting energy on pointless social interaction. Worst of all, they showed emotions openly, laughing, arguing, even crying. Such behavior was considered primitive, a sign of an undeveloped species. Nari had watched them once from a surface observation post. One human had been working to repair their equipment when another approached with warm liquid in a container. They had stopped working just to share this drink, talking and making sounds that seemed to indicate pleasure. 15 minutes of wasted time, 15 minutes that could have been spent on productive tasks. It made no sense to her. She reached her chamber and found Isol exactly where she had left her, studying the technical manuals that Nari used for her work. The young one looked up with her large compound eyes, and Nari felt that forbidden warmth again. "Mother, what is this symbol?" Isol pointed to a diagram with one delicate claw. Nari set down the rations and examined the page. She explained the thermal regulation system, and Isol absorbed the information quickly. Whatever defect affected her wings had not touched her mind. She was brilliant, learning faster than others her age. If only the council could see past the physical flaw. "Mother, can I go to the surface tomorrow?" Isol asked. "I want to see the humans." "Absolutely not." Nari's response was immediate and sharp. "You must stay hidden. If the scanners detect your wings, if anyone reports you, I know." Isol lowered her head. "I just wanted to see them. They are so strange." "Do they really waste time on emotions?" "Yes, it is their weakness. But they came so far across space. Doesn't that require strength?" Nari paused. She had never considered this perspective. The humans had indeed traveled further than any Vrixian expedition. Their technology was different from Vrixian designs, but it worked. Perhaps there were different types of strength. Before she could respond, an alarm sounded through the hive city. Not the usual work signals, but something deeper and more urgent. Nari's body went rigid with instinct. She knew that sound. Every Vrixian knew that sound. Planetary storm warning. A voice echoed through the communication system. Category 5 ice storm approaching. All surface activity must cease immediately. All citizens report to designated shelter zones. Hive seal procedure begins in 2 hours. Nari felt her breathing tubes constrict. A Category 5 storm happened perhaps once every 100 years. The winds could reach speeds that would tear apart anything not properly secured. The temperature would drop to levels that even Vrixian biology could not withstand for long. And the ice. Massive chunks of frozen atmosphere would rain from the sky like projectiles. "Come," Nari said to Isol. "We must go to the shelter zones now." They moved quickly through the tunnels, joining the orderly flow of other Vrixians heading deeper underground. No panic, no pushing. Everyone moved with purpose and efficiency. This was what made them strong, Nari thought. This collective discipline. But when they reached the shelter zone checkpoint, a scanner operator stopped them. Biological scan required, the operator said in a flat tone. Nari's heart sank. The storm protocols required full scans of everyone entering the deep shelters. It was a safety measure, ensuring no one brought contamination or illness into the sealed environment. There was no way to avoid it. She watched helplessly as Isol was directed into the scanning field. The machines hummed, analyzing every aspect of her daughter's biology. And there, on the display screen, the malformed wings showed clearly. The operator's antennae twitched. Genetic defect detected. Class 3 physical abnormality. This unit should have been reported at birth. Other Vrixians nearby stopped and turned. Nari felt their judgment like physical weight. She had violated the fundamental law. She had hidden weakness, potentially spreading flawed genetics into the population. Please, Nari said, and hated herself for begging. She is intelligent. She learns quickly. She can contribute. The law is clear, the operator interrupted. Defective units are not permitted in the shelter zones during emergency protocols. Limited resources cannot be wasted. But she will die out there. That is the natural consequence. You should have reported this at birth. Both of you are now flagged in the system. Nari grabbed Isul, pulling her daughter close. Around them, other Vrixians simply watched. Some seemed curious. Most appeared indifferent. This was normal. This was their way. The weak did not survive, and that made the species stronger. You have 1 hour before hive seal, the operator said. I suggest you use it to make peace with your choices. Nari turned away, her mind racing. She could not save Isul alone. The surface would kill them both within hours once the storm hit. She needed help, but no Vrixian would give it. To help them would be to waste resources, to show the same emotional weakness that had led Nari to this moment. As she moved through the tunnels with Isul, an impossible thought entered her mind. The humans. They were emotional. They wasted resources on feelings and sentiment. Perhaps that very weakness could be her daughter's salvation, but would they help an alien child? Would they even understand the request? And how could she reach them in time? The storm was coming. Do-hyun secured the last equipment case to the storage rack outside the human outpost. The wind had already started to pick up, and his suit's sensors showed the temperature dropping faster than predicted. His team had known this storm was coming for 3 days, but the speed of its arrival was unexpected. Do-hyun, get inside now. Minho's voice crackled through his helmet radio. Captain's orders. Storm hits in 90 minutes. Almost done, Do-hyun replied, checking the power cables one more time. He was always thorough, sometimes too thorough according to his teammates. But his careful nature had saved equipment and lives more than once. As he worked, movement caught his eye. Small tracks in the ice leading away from the outpost, fresh tracks not yet filled by the wind. He knelt down and examined them. 4 legs, clawed feet, lightweight. A Vrixian juvenile, he realized. The same one he had seen watching their base yesterday from behind an ice formation. Do-hyun had found the young alien fascinating. Most Vrixians avoided humans completely, viewing them with obvious disdain, but this small one had watched them with what seemed like curiosity. He had even waved once, though the creature had fled immediately. Now those small tracks led directly into the ice fields, toward the areas that would become completely impassable once the storm hit. Minho, do you see any Vrixians on the surface scanners? Do-hyun asked. Negative. They sealed their hive city 10 minutes ago. Why? I think one of their kids is out here. There was a pause. Not our problem, Do-hyun. They made it clear they don't want our help. Get inside, Do-hyun stared at the tracks. The child had maybe an hour before the storm became lethal. Even with Vrixian cold resistance, no juvenile could survive a Category 5 ice storm. And these tracks showed the child moving away from both the hive and the human outpost, possibly lost or disoriented. He thought of his sister Hyejin. She had been 12 when the transport accident took her. He had been on duty that day, could have taken her shift, but he had let her go. The guilt followed him across the galaxy, a weight that no distance could lessen. I'm going to find that kid, Do-hyun said. What? No, Do-hyun, that is insane. You have less than 90 minutes, which is enough time if I move fast. The captain will never approve this. Then don't tell her until I'm already gone. Do-hyun ran to the equipment room, his mind already calculating what he needed. The heaviest cold weather suit, not the standard one. Extra power cells, thermal beacons, emergency medical kit, climbing rope. He loaded everything into a pack that weighed nearly 40 kilograms, but his suit's powered frame could handle it. Jiwan appeared in the doorway. Minho told me what you are planning. This is suicide. Probably, Do-Yun agreed, checking his suit seals. For an alien child whose own people abandoned her, no one should die alone in the cold. Not if I can prevent it. Jiwan studied him for a long moment. You are thinking about Hyejin again. Do-Yun stopped moving. Maybe, does it matter why? I suppose not. Jiwan pulled a second emergency beacon from the storage cabinet. Take this too. And Do-Yun, come back alive. We need you here. I will try. He went through the airlock and into the rising wind. The storm was visible now on the horizon, a wall of white and gray that seemed to swallow the sky. The temperature had dropped another 15 degrees in just the minutes he had been inside. His suit's heating systems activated automatically. Do-Hyun followed the small tracks. They were already becoming harder to see as ice crystals began to fill them. He activated his helmet's thermal scanner, searching for the heat signature of a living creature. The tracks led him through a maze of ice formations, past frozen pools, and through narrow canyons. Twice he had to use his climbing equipment to descend steep slopes. The wind grew stronger with each minute, and his suit reported that visibility was decreasing rapidly. Do-Hyun, status report. The captain's voice came through his radio. Following tracks of a Vrixian juvenile, currently 3 kilometers from base. You directly violated my orders to return to the outpost. Yes, Captain. I apologize, there was a long silence. Your suit power? 70%. Enough for 6 hours at current drain. The storm will be at full strength in 50 minutes. You won't make it back. I know, another pause. Then find that child fast and get to shelter. Any shelter. We will extract you when the storm passes. Understood. The thermal scanner picked up something, a faint signature, weak but definitely organic, about 1 kilometer ahead. Do-Hyun increased his pace, pushing through ice formations that the wind was already beginning to tear apart. He found the child in a collapsed ice cave. A section of the ceiling had fallen, probably disturbed by the pre-storm vibrations. The young Vrixian was trapped beneath a slab of ice, one of her wings caught under the debris. She saw him approaching and made a high-pitched sound that his translator interpreted as a threat display. Easy, Do-Hyun said softly, though he knew she could not understand. I am here to help. He approached slowly, hands visible. The child tried to attack him with her small mandibles, but she was too weak. Her movements were sluggish from cold and injury. Vrixians could handle temperatures that would kill humans instantly, but even they had limits. Do-Hyun removed his helmet, despite the cold that immediately bit into his exposed face. He wanted her to see his expression, to understand he meant no harm. His breath formed clouds of ice crystals in the air. The child stopped struggling and stared at him with her large compound eyes. She had probably never seen a human face before, certainly not this close. Let me help you, Do-Hyun said. He pulled emergency heat packs from his kit and activated them, placing them near the child. Then he began working on the ice slab, using his suit's power tools to cut through it carefully. It took precious minutes to free her wing. The membrane was torn but not completely destroyed. Do-Hyun wrapped it gently with medical tape, then offered the child a thermal blanket. She took it hesitantly, still watching him with what he interpreted as confusion. The storm hit. One moment there was wind and cold. The next moment there was chaos. The temperature dropped 50 degrees in seconds. Ice chunks the size of his fist began falling from the sky. Visibility went to 0. The wind became a physical force that nearly knocked him down even in his powered suit. Do-Hyun scooped the child onto his back and ran. His GPS showed the direction back to the outpost, but he knew he would never make it. The storm was too strong, moving too fast. He needed shelter now. His scanner picked up a heat signature nearby. A thermal vent, one of the cracks in the ice that released geothermal warmth from the planet's core. It was small, barely large enough for one person, but it was their only chance. He reached the vent and activated his suit's emergency shield, a device designed for exactly this situation. It created a small force field around them, just enough to block the worst of the wind and ice. But the power drain was enormous. His suit was down to 40% and falling fast. Do-Hyun removed the thermal underlayers from his suit and wrapped them around the child. She needed the warmth more than he did. Then he held her close, sharing his body heat, and activated his emergency beacon. The storm raged around their tiny bubble of safety. Ice hammered against the shield. The wind screamed, and Do-hyun felt the cold beginning to seep into his bones despite his suit. "My name is Do-hyun," he said to the child, though she could not understand. "I had a sister once. Her name was Hyejin. She would have liked you, I think." The child made a soft clicking sound and pressed closer to his warmth. Outside, the storm consumed the world. Nari sat in the observation chamber, her body rigid with anxiety. The Hive Council had denied her request to send a rescue team. They had denied her permission to go herself. And now she sat in this cold room, watching the surface monitors as the storm tore across their world. "You waste time here," another Vrixian said as they passed. "The defective unit is gone. Accept this and move forward." Nari did not respond. She simply watched the screens, hoping for something, anything that might indicate Isol had found shelter. But the storm was too massive. The sensors could barely penetrate the ice and wind. Everything was white noise and interference. Then something appeared on one of the monitors. A signal, faint but steady. An emergency beacon using technology that was not Vrixian, human technology. Nari's breathing tubes expanded with sudden hope. She accessed the communication system, trying to determine the beacon's exact location, 3 kilometers from the human outpost, in the middle of the storm's path. But someone was alive out there, broadcasting for help. Could it be? Had one of the humans found Isol? She accessed the human communication frequencies, something that was technically forbidden, but which she had learned how to do through her technical work. The voices came through, speaking in their strange emotional language. "Status on Do-hyun?" a female voice asked. "Beacon is active, Captain, but we cannot reach him in these conditions. The storm is at full force now. His vital signs? Suit telemetry shows him alive, but his core temperature is dropping. He will not last the full duration of the storm. How long until we can send a rescue team? 18 hours minimum. The storm needs to pass completely before we can risk surface activity." Nari felt something break inside her. A human had found her daughter. A human was keeping Isol alive right now out in that frozen hell, and that human was dying because of it. She had been wrong about them. Completely wrong. This was not weakness. This was a strength that Vrixians had forgotten how to possess, if they had ever possessed it at all. The strength to value a single life even when logic said it was not worth the cost. Nari made a decision that would mark her as a traitor to her species. She accessed the restricted medical storage database, searching for specific compounds. Vrixian biotechnology was advanced in ways that human medicine was not. They had developed tissue regeneration formulas that could regrow entire limbs, cure cellular damage that would be permanent in other species. These compounds were restricted, reserved only for valuable hive members. Using them on an alien would be considered criminal waste. But Nari no longer cared about Vrixian law. She moved through the hive tunnels, using her maintenance access codes to enter restricted areas. In a cold storage vault, she found what she needed. 3 vials of regeneration compound, enough to save a dying human if applied in time. Alarms sounded as she left the vault. The system had detected the theft. Security would be coming for her within minutes. But Nari was already running, moving through maintenance tunnels that most Vrixians had forgotten existed. She reached the surface access point just as security personnel appeared behind her. "Halt! You are in violation of resource theft protocols!" Nari did not stop. She entered the access tunnel and began climbing toward the surface. Behind her, the security team hesitated. Going to the surface during a Category 5 storm was suicide. No Vrixian would make that choice. But Nari was no longer thinking like a Vrixian. She was thinking like a mother, like someone who had seen a stranger sacrifice everything for her child. The storm hit her the moment she emerged. Ice chunks struck her exoskeleton with enough force to crack the outer layer. The wind threatened to tear her from the tunnel opening. The cold was beyond anything she had experienced, even with her natural resistance. Nari activated a homing device tuned to the human emergency beacon. It gave her a direction, nothing more. She began walking 1 step at a time through the storm that was supposed to be certain death. Her exoskeleton began to frost over. Her joints grew stiff. But she continued, driven by something that Vrixian philosophy had no name for. Gratitude, duty, love. After what felt like hours but was probably only 30 minutes, she found them. A small force field flickering weakly in the storm, powered by technology that was clearly failing. Inside, she could see the human and her daughter, huddled together. Nari approached the field and used her claws to signal against it. The human inside stirred slowly, movement sluggish. He was dying, she realized. His body was not made for this cold, and he had given up his protective equipment to save his soul. The human saw her and his eyes went wide. He tried to move, probably thinking she was a threat, but he was too weak. Nari made calming gestures, though she had no idea if he would understand. She could not enter the force field without collapsing it, which would kill them all instantly. But she could strengthen it. Nari pulled a power cell from her emergency pack and connected it to the human's equipment. The field stabilized, brightened. Then she did something that went against every instinct of her species. She sat down outside the field in the full force of the storm and began transmitting. Her body could handle the cold longer than the humans, not indefinitely, but longer. She broadcast on all frequencies, Vrixian and human both, giving their exact coordinates and pleading for rescue. She described what the human had done, how he had saved a child that was not his species, how he was dying for an act of pure compassion. The storm screamed around her. Ice tore at her exoskeleton. The cold penetrated deeper with each passing minute. But Nari continued transmitting, her voice growing weaker but never stopping. Inside the force field, Isul pressed against the barrier, her small claws touching the spot where her mother sat on the other side. The human, Do-hyun, watched with eyes that seemed to hold understanding despite the language barrier. "Hang on," Nari transmitted, not knowing if he could hear her words through the storm. "Help is coming. You saved my daughter. I will not let you die for it." In the human outpost, Minho and Jiwon listened to the alien transmission with growing amazement. A Vrixian was out in the storm, broadcasting continuously, begging them to save the human who had saved her child. "Captain," Minho said, "we need to attempt rescue now." "It is still too dangerous. That alien is dying out there to keep them alive," Jiwon interrupted. "If she can do it, so can we." The captain was silent for a moment. Then, "Prep the heavy rescue vehicle. We launch in 10 minutes. The storm continued its assault on the planet. But in that small bubble of space, surrounded by impossible cold and deadly wind, 3 beings from 2 different worlds held on together, refusing to let death claim what compassion had saved. Time became meaningless in the storm. Do-hyun drifted in and out of consciousness, his body shutting down systems to preserve core functions. His fingers had gone numb hours ago. His legs barely responded to commands. But the child on his chest was still warm, still alive, and that was all that mattered. He talked to keep himself awake. Words in Korean that the small alien could not understand, but the sound of his voice seemed to comfort her. He told her about Earth, about oceans that were water instead of ice, about forests with trees that grew tall enough to touch the sky. "On my world, we have seasons," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Winter is cold like here, but then comes spring. Everything grows. Green everywhere. You would like spring, I think." The child made clicking sounds that his failing translator tried to interpret. She was asking questions, he realized, trying to understand these impossible concepts he described. "Family," he continued. "I had a sister, Hyejin. She was young like you. Always curious. Always getting into trouble." He smiled despite the cold. "She would have wanted to meet you. She loved learning about new things." His suit's computer continued logging data. Core temperature, 28 degrees. Heart rate, 40 beats per minute. Blood pressure, dangerously low. Estimated time until system failure, 2 hours. Do-hyun thought about his parents back on Earth. They had lost Hyejin 5 years ago. Now they would lose him too. He hoped they would understand why he made this choice. He hoped they would be proud. The child shifted against him, and he saw that she was looking at him with those strange compound eyes. Could she sense that he was dying? Did her species understand death the way humans did? "It is okay," he told her. "Help is coming. Your mother. She is out there. Did you know? She came for you." Outside the force field, Nari's transmissions had grown weaker. The cold was winning even against her natural resistance. Her exoskeleton had multiple cracks now, each one letting in more of the killing cold. Her movement had slowed to the point where she could barely adjust her position, but she never stopped transmitting. Every few minutes she broadcast their coordinates, begged for rescue, explained what the human had done. Some distant part of her mind recognized the irony. She had spent her entire life believing emotions were weakness. Now emotion was the only thing keeping her alive, the only thing giving her the strength to endure what should have killed her already. She thought about her life in the hive. The cold efficiency, the logical choices, the survival of the fittest. It all seemed hollow now, empty of meaning. What good was surviving if you lost everything that made life worth living? Isolde had taught her that, though the child did not know it. The moment Isolde was born, something had changed in Nari's understanding of the world. She had looked at that small, imperfect creature and felt something that logic could not explain. Love. The willingness to sacrifice everything for another's survival. And now this human, this stranger from another world, was teaching her the same lesson. He was dying to save a child he had never met before, whose species had shown him nothing but contempt. What kind of strength did that require? What kind of civilization produced individuals capable of such selflessness? Nari's transmission was interrupted by incoming communication. Human voices speaking in their quick, emotional language. Have visual on the location. Storm is still too strong for safe landing. We did not come here to play it safe. Get us down there. The rescue vehicle appeared through the storm like a metal mountain, its engines fighting the wind. Nari watched as it descended, saw the humans inside working their controls with desperate intensity. They were risking their lives to save one of their own, just as Do-hyun had risked his life to save one who was not. The vehicle touched down 20 meters away, the closest the pilots dared approach. The cargo door opened and two figures in heavy suits emerged, connected by safety lines to the vehicle. They moved toward the force field, fighting the storm with each step. Nari tried to stand to help them, but her body would not respond. The cold had finally won. She collapsed onto the ice, her consciousness fading. Minho reached Nari first. He saw the alien lying in the storm, saw the cracks in her exoskeleton, saw the emergency pack she had used to power Do-hyun's force field. He made a decision without thinking, driven by the same instinct that had sent Do-hyun into the storm in the first place. Ji-won, get Do-hyun and the child. I am taking the alien. That was not the mission. It is now. Minho scooped Nari's crystalline body into his arms. She was heavier than a human, her exoskeleton adding significant weight, but his suit's power frame handled it. He carried her back to the vehicle while Ji-won collapsed the force field and grabbed Do-hyun and the child. Inside the rescue vehicle, the medic team went to work immediately. They laid Do-hyun on a warming pad and began emergency treatment. His fingers and toes were black with frostbite. His core temperature was 26 degrees. The medic, a woman named Eunji, shook her head grimly. He needs tissue regeneration. Without it, we will have to amputate. Maybe just the fingers, but possibly the entire hands. Can we regenerate human tissue? The captain asked. Not with what we have here. We would need genetic samples, time to culture new tissue, specialized equipment. Nari stirred on the floor where Minho had placed her. Her translator device activated, her voice coming through weakly. I have regeneration compound in my pack. Everyone turned to look at the alien. Eunji approached cautiously. You have tissue regeneration? That works on humans? Yes, Vrixian biotechnology. It will work on any carbon-based life. Nari's claws fumbled at her pack. 3 vials, stolen from medical reserves. Use them. Eunji took the vials and examined them. The compounds inside glowed with a faint blue light. You stole these? For him? He saved my daughter. I will not let him die, or be damaged, because of that choice. Eunji looked at the captain, who nodded. Use them. The medic applied the Vrixian compound to Do-hyun's damaged tissue. The effect was almost immediate. The blackened fingers began to pink up. The cellular damage reversed at visible speed. Within minutes, tissue that would have required amputation was healing completely. This is incredible, Eunji whispered. This technology is decades beyond anything we have. The vehicle fought its way back to the outpost, the pilots using every bit of skill to navigate the storm. When they finally crashed through the airlock doors, everyone inside cheered. They had done the impossible. Do-hyun was rushed to medical. Nari and Isolde were taken to a quarantine room. Not because they were threats, but because the humans did not know how to treat Vrixian injuries properly. The child stayed pressed against her mother, making soft sounds of relief. And in the medical bay, as warming systems slowly brought Do-hyun's temperature back to normal, as Vrixian medicine worked its miracles on his damaged flesh, Yoonji watched the monitors and smiled. He would live. He would be whole. Because an alien mother had shown the same courage her patient had, the same willingness to sacrifice everything for another's survival. Outside, the storm continued to rage. But inside the human outpost, something new had begun. Understanding. Respect. The first fragile threads of a bond between two species who had thought they had nothing in common. The medical bay was quiet except for the steady beep of monitors. Dohyun lay unconscious on the warming bed, his body slowly recovering from the extreme hypothermia. Yoonji checked his vital signs every few minutes, amazed by how well the Vrixian medicine was working. His fingers, which should have been dead tissue requiring amputation, were pink and healthy. The frostbite damage to his ears and nose had vanished completely. Even the deeper tissue damage was healing at a rate that should have been impossible. How is he? Captain Borum stood in the doorway, her expression tired but relieved. Stable. The Vrixian compound is working better than anything in our medical database. He will make a full recovery. Yoonji shook her head in wonder. Not even a scar. It is like the damage never happened. And the alien? The mother? Nari, that is her name. She is recovering in the quarantine room with her daughter. Their biology is different from ours, but I think they are both going to be fine. Yoonji paused. Captain, what she did, coming out into that storm to save him. I have never seen anything like it. Borum nodded slowly. None of us have. It changes things, does it not? Everything we thought we knew about the Vrixians. In the quarantine room, Nari sat with Isolde pressed against her side. The human medics had repaired the cracks in her exoskeleton with some kind of bonding compound. It was not as good as Vrixian medical technology, but it worked. More importantly, they had tried. These aliens had taken time and resources to help her, just as she had helped them. Isolde kept making the same clicking sound over and over, a question in their language. Why did he do it, Mother? Why did the human risk his life for me? Nari did not have a good answer. A few days ago, she would have said it was foolishness, emotional weakness, but she could not say that anymore. Not after experiencing it herself. Not after feeling that same drive to save another at any cost. I think, Nari said slowly, that their emotions make them stronger in ways we never understood. They can do things that logic says are impossible because logic is not what drives them. The door opened and Minho entered, carrying a tray with containers of warm liquid. He set it down carefully. We were not sure what you could eat, so we brought a few options. This one is similar to your nutrient supplements based on what we could scan. This one is water. And this one, he smiled, was hot chocolate. It is a human comfort drink. We thought your daughter might like to try it. Isolde looked at the containers with curiosity. She reached for the hot chocolate carefully, tasted it, and her entire body seemed to vibrate with pleasure. Nari was shocked. Her daughter was showing emotion openly, something no young Vrixian would dare do. But Minho just laughed. She likes it? Good, we have plenty more. Why are you being so kind to us? Nari asked. We are not your species. We have shown you nothing but contempt since you arrived on our world. Minho sat down, his movements casual in a way no Vrixian ever was. Because Do-hyun risked everything for your daughter. Because you risked everything for him. That means something to us. That means we are not so different, maybe. But you waste resources on us. This food, the medical care, your time. By Vrixian logic, this is inefficient. Maybe. Minho shrugged. But we are not Vrixians. We believe some things are more important than efficiency. Like kindness. Like helping someone who needs it. It's like honoring courage wherever we find it. Before Nari could respond, an alarm sounded. Yoonji's voice came over the communication system. He is waking up. Minho stood quickly. Do you want to come? I think he would like to see that you are both safe. Nari followed Minho to the medical bay, Isolde close behind her. They found Yoonji adjusting monitors while Do-hyun stirred on the bed. His eyes opened slowly, confused and unfocused. Easy, Yoonji said softly. You are safe. You are at the outpost. The child... Do-hyun's voice was rough and weak. She is right here. Yoonji stepped aside so Do-hyun could see. Isolde moved forward shyly. She made a series of clicking sounds that the translator converted to words. Thank you for saving me. You nearly died. Do-hyun managed a small smile. You are alive. That is what matters and why. Isolde asked the same question she had asked her mother. I am not your species. My own people would not save me. Why did you? Do-hyun was quiet for a moment, thinking. Because it was the right thing to do. Because no child should die alone and afraid, because... He paused. Because I had a sister once. I could not save her. But I could save you. Nari felt something crack inside her. Some final wall between her old understanding and her new one. This human had nearly died. Not because of logic or strategy or species loyalty. He had risked everything because of love for someone he had lost, and hoped that saving another might give his sister's death some meaning. It was the most illogical, emotional, impractical thing Nari had ever witnessed, and it was the most beautiful. I brought you medicine, Nari said, her voice unsteady. Tissue regeneration compound. I stole it from the Hive medical reserves. It is a serious crime. Do-hyun looked at his hands, flexing his fingers with wonder. You did this? You saved me? You saved my daughter. I could not let you suffer for that. But you are in trouble now with your people? Yes, serious trouble. But it does not matter. It matters to me. Do-hyun tried to sit up and Yoonji helped him.
You should not be punished for helping someone. Captain Borum entered the medical bay, her expression serious.
We have been monitoring Vrixian communications. The Hive Council has declared Nari and her daughter as criminals. They are demanding their return for judgment. What kind of judgment? Minho asked. The translations are not completely clear, but it seems to involve termination. Both of them. Silence filled the room. Isil pressed closer to her mother, making a sound of fear. Nari wrapped her arms around her daughter, her body language speaking of protection even if Vrixians did not normally show such emotion. They cannot have them, Do-hyun said firmly. I will not allow it. You are in no condition to stop anyone, Yoonji protested. Then someone else will stop them. Do-hyun looked at the captain. Please, they saved my life. We cannot let them die for it, Borum sighed. It would cause diplomatic problems. The Vrixians could declare it an act of hostility. They might force us to leave this planet. So we leave, Jiwon said from the doorway. Some things are more important than mining operations. Other crew members had gathered outside the medical bay listening. One by one, they nodded agreement. They had all heard what happened in the storm. They had all seen the footage from the rescue. This was not about efficiency or profit anymore. This was about doing what was right. Captain Borum looked at her crew, then at Nari and Isil, then at Do-hyun still weak on the medical bed. She made her decision. Nari Isil, I am offering you asylum. You will be under human protection. The Vrixians will not get you, not while I am captain of this outpost. Nari's translator struggled to convey her emotional state, settling on simple words that did not capture the depth of her gratitude. Thank you. Thank you. Isil made a sound of relief and joy. Do-hyun smiled despite his exhaustion, and the human crew, watching this scene, felt something shift in their understanding of what their mission meant. They had come to this ice world to study minerals and make profit, but they had found something far more valuable. They had found proof that compassion could bridge any gap, cross any boundary, unite any species. And that was worth protecting no matter the cost. News of what happened spread through both communities like fire through dry wood. In the human outpost, Do-hyun became something of a legend. Crew members who had barely known him before now stopped to shake his hand, to tell him he was brave, to say they were proud to work with him. Do-hyun found it all uncomfortable.
He did not feel like a hero.
He had just done what needed to be done, what any decent person would have done. But Minho explained it to him one evening as they watched Isil play with some engineering tools. You showed us what we could be, Minho said. Most of us, we talk about doing the right thing. But when it comes down to actually risking something important, we hesitate. You did not hesitate. That matters. In the Vrixian Hive City, the reaction was very different. The Hive Council viewed the entire incident as a catastrophic failure of social order. Nari had violated multiple laws. She had hidden a genetic defect. She had stolen valuable medical resources. She had abandoned her post during an emergency. And worst of all, she had shown emotion, that most dangerous of weaknesses. But something unexpected happened. A few Vrixians, those who had witnessed Nari's broadcast during the storm, began asking questions. If showing emotion was weakness, why had it given Nari the strength to survive conditions that should have killed her? If the humans were primitive and foolish, why had their technology and medicine saved lives that Vrixian logic had abandoned? One of these questioners was a young male named Taewon, a maintenance worker like Nari had been. He had known her slightly, had always thought she was too emotional, too attached to her offspring. But he had heard her broadcasts. He had heard the desperation and love in her voice, and something about it had disturbed his understanding of the world. Taewon began watching the human outpost from a distance. He saw Nari and Isol living there now, saw how the humans treated them. Not as prisoners or slaves, but as equals, as friends. The humans wasted time talking to them, teaching Isol their language, showing them human customs. It made no logical sense, but Taewon noticed something else. The humans were happy. They laughed. They showed affection openly. They helped each other with tasks even when there was no practical benefit. And somehow, despite all this inefficiency, their outpost ran smoothly. Their equipment worked well. Their research progressed. Maybe, Taewon thought dangerously, emotions were not just weakness. Maybe they were something else too. He was not the only one thinking this. Small groups of Vrixians began gathering in private spaces, discussing what they had witnessed. The Hive Council noticed these gatherings and became alarmed. They issued a declaration that any Vrixian caught communicating with the humans would face severe punishment. But the declaration came too late. Curiosity had been awakened, and curiosity was hard to suppress. Inside the human outpost, Isol was transforming. She learned human language at incredible speed, her young mind absorbing everything. She learned about concepts that had no Vrixian equivalent: friendship, play, dreams for the future. She began drawing pictures, an activity that Vrixians never engaged in because it had no practical purpose. Ji-won found her one day creating a drawing of the ice storm, with stick figures representing Do-hyun, her mother, and herself. "That is very good," Ji-won said, sitting beside her. "You have talent." "What is talent?" Isol asked. "It means you are naturally good at something. You have a gift for art." Isol considered this. In the hive, being good at things only matters if those things are useful. Art is not useful, maybe not for survival, but it is useful for the soul, for expressing feelings, for making beauty in a harsh world. Soul? What is soul? Ji-won struggled to explain the concept. It is the part of you that feels, that dreams, that makes you who you are beyond just your body and your function. Do Vrixians have souls? I think all living things do. Your people just forgot how to listen to theirs. This conversation troubled Isol for days. She began watching her mother interact with the humans, noticing things she had never considered before. How Nari would pause sometimes and just look at her. No practical reason, just looking. How Nari would touch her gently when they passed each other. How Nari's whole body language changed when Isol entered a room, becoming softer, more open. Her mother had a soul, had always had one. The hive had just forced her to hide it. Meanwhile, Do-hyun recovered quickly. Within a week, he was back to light duty. Within 2 weeks, he was fully active again. The Vrixian medicine had worked perfectly, leaving no trace of his near-death experience except for the memories. He spent much of his time with Nari, learning about Vrixian culture, while teaching her about human society. They discovered they had much in common despite their different biologies. Both were engineers. Both loved solving problems. Both had lost people they cared about and carried that weight. Why do humans form pairs? Nari asked one day as they worked together on a water filtration system. Bonded partnerships. What purpose does it serve? Do-hyun thought about his own failed relationships, the connections he had run from after Hyejin died. Love, companionship, support. Someone to share your life with. Someone who understands you. Vrixians reproduce but do not form emotional bonds. It is more efficient, maybe, but also lonely. Nari was quiet for a long moment. "Yes," she finally said. "Very lonely." The Hive Council issued their ultimatum on the 15th day after the storm. A delegation approached the human outpost under a flag of truce. They demanded the return of Nari and Isol for judgment. They claimed it was an internal matter of Vrixian law. Captain Borum met them at the airlock with Do-hyun, Minho, and Ji-won beside her. The lead counselor, a large male whose name translated roughly as Efficiency Prime, stated their case in cold, logical terms. The criminals must be returned. They have violated fundamental laws. Their continued existence threatens social order. They saved the life of one of my crew, Borum responded calmly. We do not return people to face execution when they have done nothing wrong by human standards. Human standards are irrelevant. They are Vrixian. Vrixian law applies. They asked for asylum. We granted it. They are under human protection now. The counselor's antennae twitched with agitation. This is an act of hostility. We could order you to leave this planet. You could, but then you would lose the trade agreements. The technology exchanges. The economic benefits of our presence here. Is that really logical? The counselor had no response to that. The truth was that the human presence had become valuable to the hive. Their different approach to problems had led to improvements in Vrixian technology. Their trade had brought resources the hive needed. Forcing them to leave would hurt both species. We will give you time to reconsider, the counselor finally said, but this matter is not settled. As the delegation left, Do-Yun noticed something. One of the younger Vrixians in the group kept looking back at the outpost, his body language showing what seemed like curiosity rather than hostility. When their eyes met, the young Vrixian made a gesture that Do-Hyun did not recognize. Later, Nari explained it to him. That was Taewon. He was asking permission to return, alone, to learn. Learn what? How to feel. How to be something more than just efficient. And in that moment, Do-Hyun understood. The change they had started was not going to stop with Nari and Isol. It was spreading slowly but surely through the entire Vrixian society. They had planted a seed of something dangerous and beautiful, the seed of compassion. 3 months passed. The ice world of Vrix 7 continued its endless winter, but something fundamental had changed beneath the frozen surface. The human outpost had expanded, not with new buildings but with new relationships, new understandings, new possibilities. Do-Hyun stood at the observation window, watching the ice field stretch toward the horizon. His hands, fully healed thanks to Vrixian medicine, held a warm cup of coffee. Behind him he could hear Isul chattering away in fluent human language, teaching a group of young Vrixians how to play a card game that Jiwon had shown her. Yes, young Vrixians, plural. What had started with Taewon had grown into something larger. A small but steady stream of Vrixians, mostly younger ones, had approached the human outpost asking to learn about emotions, about compassion, about this strange way of living that valued feelings as much as efficiency. The Hive Council had tried to stop it. They had issued warnings, threats, even attempted to seal off the tunnels leading to the surface. But you cannot stop an idea whose time has come. The young Vrixians found ways to reach the outpost, driven by curiosity and a hunger for something their society had denied them. Nari approached and stood beside Do-Hyun, her crystalline form catching the light. Over the months, she had changed in subtle ways. Her movements were less rigid, her body language more expressive. She had learned to smile, or at least the Vrixian equivalent of it, a softening of her mandibles that conveyed warmth. You are thinking deep thoughts, she observed. Just remembering, Do-Hyun replied. 3 months ago I thought I was going out to rescue one lost child. I did not know I was starting a revolution. Is that what this is? A revolution? Of a sort. A peaceful one. Maybe the most important kind. They watched Isol for a moment. The young Vrixian had become a bridge between their species, comfortable in both worlds, able to explain human concepts to her own kind and Vrixian logic to the humans. She had started teaching classes, helping other young Vrixians understand emotions, showing them that feelings were not weakness but strength. The council requested a meeting with Captain Boram, Nari said. Tomorrow. About what? They did not say. But I think they are ready to talk. Really talk. Do-Hyun hoped she was right. The tension between the Hive Council and the humans had eased over the months, but it had not disappeared. The council still viewed emotions with suspicion, still saw the changes in their youth as potentially dangerous, but they could not deny the results. The young Vrixians who spent time at the human outpost returned to the hive different, more creative in their problem-solving, better at working in teams, more motivated and engaged in their work. The efficiency the council prized so highly had actually improved among those who learned to value things beyond pure logic. The next day, the meeting took place in a neutral location, a chamber halfway between the hive and the outpost. Captain Boram brought Do-Hyun, Minho, and Jiwon. The Hive Council sent 3 of their senior members, including Efficiency Prime, but they also brought someone unexpected. An elderly Vrixian female whose title translated as Keeper of Memory. She was ancient by Vrixian standards, her exoskeleton scarred and weathered. I am here, she said in a voice that rasped like ice on stone. Because I remember what the Council has forgotten. Our species was not always as we are now. This caused visible shock among the other counselors. The humans leaned forward, fascinated. The Keeper continued. Thousands of generations ago, Vrixians were different. We formed bonds. We showed affection. We valued art and beauty along with function. But our world grew colder. Resources became scarce, and we adapted. We became efficient. We removed emotions because they seemed like luxuries we could not afford. She turned her compound eyes toward the humans. We survived, but we lost something vital. We forgot that there is more to life than merely surviving. We forgot joy. We forgot love. We forgot compassion. Efficiency prime shifted uncomfortably. With respect, Keeper, those things make us weak. Do they? The Keeper gestured toward a display showing footage from the ice storm. This human nearly died to save a child not his own. This Vrixian mother violated every law to save him in return. Where is the weakness? I see only strength. Strength of a kind we have lost, Captain Borum spoke carefully. We are not trying to destroy your culture. We respect your ways. But perhaps there is room for both. Efficiency and emotion, logic and compassion. That is what I propose, the Keeper said. An exchange program. Not just our youth visiting your outpost, but official. Structured. Some Vrixians learn from you. Some humans learn from us. We both become stronger by combining our strengths. The counselors conferred in their own language, a rapid clicking that the translators struggled to follow. Finally, Efficiency Prime spoke. This is highly irregular, but the results speak for themselves. We agree to a trial program, 1 year. We will evaluate the outcomes and decide whether to continue. It was not a perfect solution. Not everyone would be happy with it. But it was a start. Over the following weeks, the exchange program took shape. A dedicated building was constructed between the hive and the outpost, neutral territory where both species could meet and learn. Isel became the primary teacher on the human side, explaining emotions and social bonds. A Vrixian named Sua taught humans about efficiency, resource management, and logical decision-making. Dohyun found himself deeply involved in the program. He taught classes on compassion, using his own experience in the storm as an example. He talked about Heejin, about loss and grief and love, and he watched as young Vrixians began to understand these concepts, their worldview expanding beyond pure survival. One evening, as he was leaving a class, Taewon approached him. The young Vrixian had become a regular at the outpost, one of the most enthusiastic students. I wanted to thank you, Taewon said, for saving a soul, for showing us that there is another way. I just did what needed to be done. No, you did what was right, even when it was not logical, even when it might cost you everything. That is different. That is special, Do-hyun smiled. You are learning. Yes, and I want to learn more. Some of us, we are talking about starting a new community. Vrixians who want to live differently, not abandoning efficiency, but adding compassion to it. Would humans help us build such a place? I think we would be honored to help. 6 months after the storm that changed everything, the first joint Vrixian human settlement began construction. It was small, just a few buildings, but it represented something enormous. A place where two species could live together, learning from each other, becoming more than either could be alone. Nari and Isol were among the first residents. They helped design the settlement, ensuring it met the needs of both species. Dohyun moved there too, finding in this new community a sense of purpose he had lost when Hyejin died. One night he and Nari sat on the observation deck watching the stars. The ice world was harsh and cold, but up here, wrapped in their protective suits, they could see the beauty in it too. Do you ever regret it? Nari asked. Going out into that storm? You could have died. No, Dohyun said without hesitation. I would do it again. Every time. Even knowing the risk, especially knowing the risk. Because that is what makes it meaningful. Compassion without sacrifice is just sentiment. Real compassion requires being willing to pay a price. Nari was quiet for a moment. Then I think I understand now. Why humans are strong despite your emotions. Maybe because of them. You can do impossible things when you care enough. And you can do impossible things when you let yourself care. You proved that. They sat in comfortable silence. Two beings from different worlds who had found common ground in the most unlikely place. Around them, the new settlement glowed with warm light, a beacon of hope on a frozen planet. Inside, Young Vrixians and humans worked together on projects that combined logic and creativity. They laughed together, learned together, built something new together. And in the center of it all, Isolde played with her friends, a child who had been condemned to death now thriving in a world that valued her for exactly who she was. The Hive Council continued to watch with suspicion. Many older Vrixians still viewed emotions as weakness. Change would not come easily or quickly. But it had begun, and once begun it would not stop, because Do-hyun had shown them something vital that day in the storm. That one person, acting with compassion and courage, could change the world, not through force or conquest but through simple, stubborn kindness, through refusing to accept that anyone should die alone, through believing that all life had value, regardless of species or usefulness. He had saved one child from an ice storm, and in doing so he had saved an entire species from the cold emptiness of a life without love. That was the human way. That was humanity's strength, and now it was becoming the Vrixian way too. The future stretched before them, uncertain but bright with possibility. Two species, learning to walk together through the ice and cold toward something warmer, toward compassion, toward understanding, toward a new world built not on the survival of the fittest, but on the survival of the kindest. And it all began with one human who saw a child in danger and decided that saving her was worth any cost, even his own life.